What's up, Internet? It is I again, that guy again, and today we're deviating from the standard format just a little bit to showcase 5 of the most interesting debug rooms in Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. There's a bunch of videos about unused content in this beloved game, but somehow it seems like these debug rooms have just slipped right through the cracks. But before we get started, you might be wondering for yourself how to access these debug rooms, and the answer lies in the way that the game loads a room. See, when you trigger a warp in Kingdom Hearts 1, a few things happen. First, the game uses a numeric value called a world ID that keeps track of which world you're in. This could be 0 for Dive to the Heart, 1 for Destiny Island, 2 for Traverse Town, and the list just goes on. It uses the world ID to load the correct warp table for the world that you're in. What is a warp table, you might ask? Well, before we get into that, we should talk about what a warp is. And a warp is an object in the game that tells it exactly which room to load you into, as well as the positions and the rotations you need to spawn each party member in. And these warps, they're just placed one after another in memory, and the warp table itself is just an array of these warps grouped one by one. After loading the warp table, we use another number called the warp ID. This tells the game which warp you should be placed at in the world, and it's essentially just the position in the warp table that the desired warp appears at. It's a 4-byte value, but it starts off at 0 and can go up to anything within a 4-byte range. The game actually uses this warp ID and the warp table to determine the room ID of the next room to spawn the player in. The last step in all of this is to take the room ID and use another table called the scene table to locate the desired scene ID to load. This is where the magic happens. Progression in each room can loosely be tracked by the game by updating these scene IDs in the scene table. In Traverse Town's first district, for example, a scene ID of 3 will load the Leon fight. Loading scene ID 2 instead loads in the scene before Sora finds Sid. By modifying the scene ID that loads during room load, we can actually access these debug rooms. Usually, scene ID 12 or 25 will correspond to a debug room, but not all rooms have one. Additionally, scene 25 seems to force Sora to be the only party member that loads for some reason. The first lost debug room that we're going to be looking at today is the arena of the Olympus Coliseum. This room contains an unused spike ball asset which does 3 damage when a character collides with it. It also contains a tiki torch, 3 chests with potions, 3 barrels, and 4 boxes, all of which are encapsulated in a barrier that you actually have to hack through to get into it. Makes you wonder where the spike ball might have been used at, aside from maybe one of the challenges Phil gives you at the start. Next, we'll examine the Treehouse of Deep Jungle, which contains one of the slides from the camp map of the same world. When examined, it provides symbols as a response, which seems to be due to the English version of the game not having the Japanese font set. After posting this in the OpenKH Discord, I received a translation from the Penitent Textures 1, whose YouTube channel I've linked in the description. Their translation into Japanese, when converted to English, actually just says cool. Almost like the devs had some kind of self-awareness about how cool debug rooms are when they were making this game. In the Hippo's Lagoon, there's another slide similar to the one present in the treehouse. There are 3 entities in this room that crash the game when you try to enable the flag to render them. Their names are MVF_Kaba1_sub, and it's actually just the same name, just change 1 to 2 and 2 to 3, and you got all 3 of them. And it seems that Kaba is a Japanese word for hippo, so somehow it might relate to the 3 hippos that are chilling in the lagoon, but they actually have separate entities. The room also contains some more symbol text, but currently it's unknown what this translation is. I'll leave it up here on the screen for a minute, and if anyone's able to translate it, I'd love to see it in the comments. This is likely the most interesting lost room in the game. This room contains a number of assets from Agrabah, as well as a pumpkin from Halloween Town for some reason. It's actually the first debug room we've seen with breakable boxes and barrels, and it also features 2 swirling chests that circle around the party members for some reason. Additionally, there's a talking barrel that tests moving or turning an adjacent box for the rest of its natural life. The last lost room we'll look at today is the Queen's Castle. This one might have actually just been used for testing the elements of the fight that you have against her deck of cards, as it includes the cages for Donald and Goofy and the destructible tower too. For some reason, Cheshire Cat is here too, and he's just making a bugle float. I guess you could call that an air horn. Of course, there are more lost debug rooms in this game, but most of the ones we know about are fairly basic, simply including that world's variants of boxes and barrels. But if you're interested in more of this style of content, exploring the remaining rooms, a comment or a like would help to let me know. But if you don't want to wait on me to get around to uploading more, feel free to check out my Kingdom Hearts hacking playlist where I chaotically bring the game to its knees. But anyway, thanks for watching and hope your day treats you well.